Welcome to the Private Practice Startup Podcast, where we help ambitious private practitioners across the globe to brand themselves and grow their dream practices. We chat with successful private practitioners, business coaches, and marketing experts, bringing you tons of practice building ninja tips. Visit privatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and our signature marketing e-course. Here are your co-hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. How are you guys doing today? We hope that you guys joined us last week as we interviewed Nicole Icavoni, and that was such a fun podcast. Nicole is a financial therapist, and we talked about how to take control of your finances and boost your business. She has this really creative way of having a different relationship with your finances. She shares her story, her triumphs, her struggles, and how she helps others do the same. So definitely check that one out for sure. Today's guest is not only one of our guests, our friends, our colleagues, one of our brand ambassadors, also a previous podcast guest. Our guest today is Marla Berger. I'll be telling you a little bit about her in just a moment if you haven't gotten introduced to her yet. But Startup Nation, if you are brand new to us, we want to say welcome. We so appreciate that you took the opportunity to spend your time with us today, and we hope that you continue to do that. And, you know, like good hosts, we love giving gifts, and we have a special gift for you. That is our marketing playbook, our dream private practice playbook, and that is free to use. So head on over to privatepracticestartup.com, head on over to the resources tab and grab it. So whether you're brand new to us or just haven't grabbed it yet, please do so. That is actually the playbook that Kate and I have used to build our six-figure private practices and have helped many other therapists do the same. And we'd love to gift that to you. So Marla's here talking about where are they now? Marla's success story. This is it's kind of like a mini series that's embedded in our podcast where we interview some of our guests who've either gone through our e-course or e-course in coaching, and they just really share about their journey into mental health, private practice, what's working for them, what's not working, and so they can be a source of inspiration for you. So Marla's a licensed mental health counselor. I don't know what ATR is, Marla.
Well, it's art therapist registered, because registered art therapist, which is actually how you say it, RAT, would not be good credentials after your name. So
you're a rat.
You say it registered art therapist, but you write it ATR because,
It's so funny because I knew that's what you are. And I'm like, wait, ATR, I don't know what that is now. And then you're a registered play therapist. And what's the S?
Supervisor. So I also provide supervision.
Gotcha. And you are also a qualified supervisor here in the state of Florida. So Marla grew up loving art, playing and working with horses. It's no wonder why she became an experiential therapist. Marla works along two wonderful equines in Parkland, Florida. She enjoys teaching others how to incorporate art, play games, and horses into therapy session in her spare time. And she really just lives, breathes, and she just told us she went horseback riding this morning. This is who Marla is. I've actually attended one of her trainings. She's amazing. So we're really excited to have her back on the show today. Last time we actually talked about equine assisted psychotherapy. So we'll make sure we put that in the podcast show notes. So for those of you who might be interested in that modality, you'll definitely want to check that out. So welcome back.
Welcome. I'm so happy to be here. I love hanging with you guys.
Well, we love hanging with you too. Very good. So obviously, this creative part of you has always been part of you, but share with us a little bit of that aspect, and how did that then begin to merge with mental health? When did you decide that you want to become a therapist?
Really, really young. So I'm one of those people who kind of knew who they wanted to be when they were still in high school. And now at 46, I can kind of retrace the steps, but it seemed obvious at the time what I wanted to be the minute I heard it. And now I kind of know the why a little bit more. So when I was 16, I had this awesome friend, John, who unfortunately struggled a lot with bipolar disorder. And, unfortunately, at some point he took his own life. And so about 4 or 5 months later, I was just a new 17-year-old, and I heard the words art therapy, and it literally clicked, because I knew that, oh my gosh, I love art, but I didn't want to be an artist. I didn't want to be an art teacher. And I really loved horses. And I really was like, well, that'd be awesome too, to do something with horses, but I didn't want to be a jockey. I didn't want to be a horse trainer. Like I wasn't good enough to do anything professionally. So I was like, what could I be other than a cowhand at this moment? And so it was like this idea of art and horses. And so I volunteered with like the Special Olympics and stuff. And I was like, that's nice too. So fast forward, I just knew from 17 on, I wanted to be an art therapist. So I educated myself. I then educated my guidance counselor in high school, and then my guidance counselor in my bachelor's program on how to get, myself towards my art therapy goal. Went on to get a master's in art therapy from the University of Louisville. And during that time, I volunteered again with therapeutic horseback riding. And I'm like, gosh, this is nice. It's nice, but it's not quite what I want to be. And all of a sudden, I started hearing all these whispers about, wait, we could do therapy with the horses as opposed to a riding program, which is really awesome, but not quite, again, what I wanted to be. And so that got me certified through Path International and EGALA, which are kind of the two gold standards back then in the industry of equine assisted psychotherapy. And I became a registered art therapist. And of course, because I'm an overachiever a little bit, I also got really turned on during my master's to stand tray and play. And so from that moment on, I was really trying to work towards my registered play therapy certification as well. So now I've got the trifecta, art, play, and horses. So about a 30-year story. Oh my goodness. Wow.
We're all in like a few minutes. That's amazing.
Yes. And so that's something that I just love. And so my program really emphasizes the doing part. Yes, a lot of times we might be doing more traditional talk therapy. I have a lot of training and lots of trauma-focused services where we sit down and we're talking with each other. But I really love to do. And so all the services that I provide were really incorporating something, either being in nature, taking a walk, doing something where we're actually moving, and even my telehealth services, we're doing art. And so you might only see the top of my head for 30 minutes during a session, but we're really doing a lot of work during that time.
How did you get into horses and the whole equine world as a kid?
Well, I lived in Miami, which is not known for being very close to horses. So there's pictures that I have that I drew from about second and third grade on. So I've always been horse crazy. Didn't always get hands on physical horses. So I had, art where I was drawing them. I was reading all about them. And then I was really lucky enough to every so often be able to ride, be able to go to camps where we would ride. And then I actually went on and just, again, volunteered in high school, and then volunteered further and actually worked as a camp counselor in a riding program, at one point in time during a summer break. And it was really great. Also, I would work with horses over the summer at a farm outside of Gainesville and just literally groom them, feed them, walk them, ride, drive them, because they were cart horses. It's really neat.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I'm not a great rider, but I worked a lot with horses growing up, like high school on. So it just really ignited that desire to work with them and not necessarily always be about the riding part, because the relationship is built on the ground before we ever get on them. And that really is solidified through all the work that I do, because there isn't any riding in my therapy services. And so we have to work on relationship. We have to work on metaphor, what's happening when the horses are allowed to move away or to move closer. And so I got to experience that a lot growing up, of how to have a good relationship with horse on the ground, mano a mano.
Very cool. Was there anyone in your family, Marla, that was also interested in horses, or this was kind of your love and passion?
This was my love and passion. My uncle, Eddie, used to be a cowhand up in New York. And so that was as close as it got. And it was a very different time when he was, riding out there. So it was a lot of a different philosophy. I really am like the outlier in my family of loving horses. Everyone else is like, okay, that's nice. Okay. when they would go visit me, when I'd be working on the farm, they'd be like, all right. So what else do you do here? I'm like, no, this is it. Like, we just stay in the dirt all day.
Very cool. Very cool.
It's so cool. It makes me think of my own journey a little bit. As a kid, I was also in love with horses, and my sister had started riding. She's 3 years younger than me. And I want to say she was like maybe 4 when she started riding, or 5.
Wow.
And I was, 7 or 8. And then I rode competitively, and my parents made me pay for all of my riding lessons to prove that I was actually serious about it. And I remember cleaning about 20 horse stalls just to pay for one lesson each week when I was really, really young. And I just loved it. It's such a powerful relationship between the between the person and the horse. And then that relationship teaches you so much about the client therapist relationship too. I'm just kind of curious about how that experience was for you, just being so in tune with another animal, another being, and then being able to also utilize that skill in therapy as well.
Yeah. So a lot of times we're really working on those communication skills. Sometimes with kids, they're having a hard time sequencing things. And so we might work on just sequencing. How do you get the horse out of the stall and put the halter on? And it's really hard to put a halter on when you haven't opened the door. So there's all of these like really cool tasks that can happen. Now I'll use that as well with adults, but adults generally by then have learned a little bit more about how do I sequence things, and my executive functioning is a little bit better at adulthood. However, that's still something that we sometimes struggle with. Other times we're working on really good communication skills. I mean, I have definitely fall prone to this, where the more frustrated I am, the quieter I get. And yet that's not really helpful. And so a lot of times we'll be able to say, well, I've noticed your mouth is really quiet. I'm wondering if you need to tell the horse something, ask for your needs to get met. And what's really cool is a lot of time the horse actually listens, when someone says, could you please lower your head? And all of a sudden the horse's head's going down, and it's like, oh, look, I immediately got my needs met, or I didn't really mean it. And so I didn't really get what I wanted. So, okay, so how could we actually mean it? And a lot of the work that we do is also kind of based off like of stepping up our energy, which, let's face it, in a relationship, that's exactly what we have to do. I work a lot with parents. And so with the parents, I'm like, all right, so we're going to start soft. We ask with a soft request, and then we move it up the ranking until we get to it's time. It's going to happen now with our big voice, and there's going to be a consequence. Ba-bum. All right. And yet when we ask for the next request, we don't start back up at the same intensity. We go back to the soft request, but the soft request also isn't a wishy-washy request. It's not a vague request. It's a very specific request. And the cool thing is that we can teach that kind of building up our requests to little kids so that they can get their needs met. And they have to really sit and think about what they actually want. And then we can build it all the way up into adulthood, building on just communications of, can I get what I want from in this moment? And that's really neat. I'll say I am so used to horses that it is a little jarring when people are like, I don't know what they think and feel. And so a few years ago, I was at a training, and the trainers were like, this is the coolest thing. We have camels. We're going to bring the camels out to the arena and you'll work with them. And I had this moment of just sheer, what the hell is going on? And so are they happy? Are they sad? Are they going to kick me? Are they going to spit at me? I don't know are they okay? Like, are they coming closer? I had no idea what to do. And whenever my clients are really kind of in that place, if I don't know what's happening, I go, okay, Marla, this is the camel situation. Like I've never worked with a camel before. How would I know what it wants to do? And I had all of these like negative connotations about what camels were like. And so it was a really good moment for me to also be able to step back as a clinician and go, just because I have all the experience and I know vaguely what the horse is thinking and feeling right now, that means nothing, because it's really about the client's experience and what are they noticing and feeling right now, and how can they change that communication? Because if they think the horse is freaked out, what would you do if another person is freaked out?
It kind of reminds me of the private practice journey, right? You get into the private practice journey and we go to school to become great clinicians. And then we get in and we're like, what do I do with this camel? What do I do with the business side of things? And everybody, has that freak out. And it's a learned skill, just like you learn to interact and speak with the camel or the horses. You learn to navigate the private practice world. So let's take a quick sponsor break. And when we come back, we'll hear more about your private practice journey. Is managing your practice stressing you out? Try Therapy Notes. It makes billing, notes, scheduling, and telehealth a whole lot easier. Check it out, and you will quickly see why it's rated the highest EHR on Trustpilot with over 1,000 verified customer reviews and an average customer rating of 4.9 or 5 stars. You'll notice the difference from the first day you sign up for the trial. They offer live phone support 7 days a week. So when you have questions, you can quickly reach someone who can help. You are never wasting time looking for answers. If you're coming from another EHR, they make the transition really easy. Therapy Notes will import your client's demographic data free of charge during your trial so you can get going right away. Use the promo code PPS to get your first 2 months for free, or try out Therapy Notes for free, no strings attached, including their very reliable telehealth platform. Make 2021 the best year yet with Therapy Notes.
Okay, guys, it's sponsor time. You know what? Instead of reading a script about Gusto's payroll and benefits, we wanted to tell you what small business owners say, the people who use Gusto every day. Here's what one small business owner says. With Gusto, I think of payroll as a 30-second job. The website is so friendly and a joy to use. Friendly payroll? You don't hear that every day. And how about Amy from Utah? Amy says, I love Gusto so much. It's so painless. It's like going to the spa, and we have great options and rates even though we're a super small team. Like going to the spa? Wow. And here's what Mneet says about Gusto's support team. Whenever something comes up, I reach out and literally 24 hours later, they tell us what to do or assure us that we've already handled it. Smart technology and friendly humans, that's super cool. Honestly, the list goes on, and right now our listeners get 3 months free when they go to gusto.com/PPS. Yep, 3 months of payroll, benefits, administration, and more, totally free. Again, that's gusto.com/PPS. So Marla, where do you want to start in your private practice journey? Because we know you pretty well, and we know that you were working full time and building your private practice. So where do you want to start in that journey?
I think that kind of that pivotal time is like, the transition from full-time work to full-time practice. We could throw in the COVID issue. Everything has to change. But I think like that transition of full-time work to full-time practice and having, having some of that background, coaching, but then I had to supercharge it because I was literally building from the ground up at that moment. And so I went to the e-courses and I went back to, into that coaching piece of what do I do to build something?
Yeah.
I think that might be good.
Yeah. When did you initially start like your practice?
Officially kind of incorporated in 2009.
Okay.
I'd been doing, private practice work under other people or under just Marla Berger, but like created Berger Counseling Services in 2009.
Right. So yeah, tell us like what happened and how you had to fast forward going from part-time to full-time and then with the pandemic.
Yes, that sounds great.
That sounds like anxiety provoking.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
It's just lovely. Do you want me to start now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I officially, built my private practice. My official date is 2009. I had been doing private practice work while I had full-time jobs for many years, but I really decided that in 2009, I really wanted to have my name. And so I created Berger Counseling Services, LLC, so that I could potentially expand one day and have people work underneath me. Now, throughout all of this, I had a full-time job, and I did love my job that I would have, at any given time. But as time went on, I was thinking I really enjoy this private practice work. And so I was at the point of saying, it's time for me to leave full-time work when the pandemic hit. And guess what? I had to leave full-time work at that point and build my private practice. Now, at the time, I had really been working really hard with, doing all of the work for my private practice in that I had gotten all of the insights. Thank you so much, Katie, from all the coaching that we had done. And then I realized that now with this pandemic, I was really going to have to kind of redesign what my practice looked like, because I always said I would never be a telehealth therapist, but I also was very concerned about seeing any clients. So it did take me a little while to create what was going to be the right fit for me. And so I went and I was pounding those e-courses and making sure that I was doing everything that I could best practice. So I was watching webinar after webinar. I was listening to, every podcast I could to make sure that I was really on top of it, and checking the CDC all the time. And so, I created the COVID guidelines for my in-person sessions, which are all outdoors. And for anybody who was at risk or not an appropriate fit for outdoor services, they were telehealth. And so that was just kind of who I was. And I had to then review all of the telehealth guidelines from the private practice startup paperwork, because again, that was not something I ever thought I'd ever have to do. And so really creating, and thank goodness the paperwork is so, crystal clear. It really shows everything that I needed to do to have a really well thought out telehealth plan with the emergency contact stuff. And so I was able to roll right into that. And I also did take another webinar on that, of course, just because that's the right thing to do to make sure that I've covered all my bases. But the great thing is that the paperwork was already there, and I was able to copy and paste it into my EHR, and I was ready to go. One of the things that has been so helpful is that communication with both you, Kate and Katie, because I've been able to really continue that coaching process with you guys and understand, how do I need to build the practice during the worst possible time to be building a practice. And I currently have a registered intern working underneath me, as well as a student intern and another one that's going to be starting over the summer. So there's a lot of income that is all of a sudden being generated. I have never had a bank account this full. And I'm in this supreme place of gratitude because without all of that background, first I had good paperwork. Then I had, all of the e-courses that I was able to really go redesign my website in an instant, and understand how can I market to my ideal client instead of taking anybody who wasn't really like the right fit for me either. And then on top of that, to be able to have that time coaching and understanding, really where do I want to be? And so I remember in one of the coaching, I was talking about a training and I was like all wishy-washy. And I was like, well, I'd really like 10 people to come to my training. And Kate's like, no, what's your real number? And I'm like, it's going to be 20 and next time is 30. And the time after that's 40. And in that instant, when someone asked, I was able to create a really tangible goal and I hit that goal. And so that was really important to me. And it really showed me just the power of coaching, because it really puts you in the space of, I have to make a tangible goal. And then I have to actually, make all the efforts to meet it. If it's just in my head, that's nice. But until it's on paper, until it's part of my plan, it's probably not going to happen.
So it sounds like one of the things that has worked for you is just getting really crystal clear and also writing it down.
So much so. Writing it down has been really helpful, but that crystal clear. And I think also getting outside of my head. And I think that that's the part that coaching really helps me with, is that I can write things down. I can have some goals, but it's really when an outsider challenges me to look at those goals and really hone in on them. That's really helpful. And so I have my journal that I work in, and it has really specific kind of solution-oriented goals and, what am I going to do today and what's my long-term goal? But at the same time, I might get in the woods. And so that's been the really amazing part of the work that I've been able to do to make this hero's journey arc be successful.
Awesome. And, I'm curious because I know that people are wondering this, is that, they're thinking about, especially like your work, it's very experiential and with horses, and all of a sudden we go into COVID and there's no contact. Well, it's easier for a therapist who does an office to move to telehealth, but for you, it's a little bit different. So I'm sure many people are curious about that, but before you answer that, let's just take a quick moment for our sponsor. As a therapist, you're probably too preoccupied with your caseload to want to think about bookkeeping or tax filing. Herd Bookkeeping and Tax is a platform built specifically for therapists that helps you track and improve your practice's financial health. Regardless of whether you're a seasoned clinician or you're in the first year of your practice, Herd will help you to identify areas for growth and streamline best financial practices for your business. When you sign up with Herd, you work directly with financial specialists to track your income and expenses, file taxes online, and grow your business. You'll also receive financial insights such as profit and loss statements and personalized monthly reports, so you can say goodbye to poring over spreadsheets and guessing your tax deductions or quarterly payments. Focus on your clients and Herd will take care of the rest. You can even ask Dr. Jennifer Kashani, a licensed clinical psychologist based in LA. She says Herd has simplified and streamlined bookkeeping and best business practices in a digestible and accessible way. Having the foundation of Herd for my business had made myself and in turn my patients feel more solid. Plans begin at just $60 a month and can easily be tailored to fit your business financial needs. You can schedule your first consultation at joinherd.com. That's joinherd, HEARD.com. So Marla, share with us that, because I don't know, I think I would just go into like sheer panic, like, oh my gosh, like my practice, how am I going to be able to do this? So how did you overcome that?
I watched a lot of webinars from industry experts who were literally like coming up with it as we would speak. Luckily I have just this really amazing community globally, where, people really mobilized and said, all right, if we're going to include horses into our work, through the two major modalities that I use, eGala and natural lifemanship, what does that look like? And so I just sat there and sat in on one webinar after the other where we really understood as an industry, how are we going to move forward and how are we going to stick with our model? Because I think that is the most important thing when we're doing ethical work. For play therapy, I sat in on trainings, and workshops and really understood. I'm also part of the Florida Play Therapy Association. And so being able to do all this, but on top of that, of course, my art therapy. And I think that for the most part, art therapy was the easiest one to transition in, because a lot of the times, we don't create art together, literally on the same paper. And so really it was just making sure that my clients have materials. And in many art therapy sessions, we do just see the top of each other's head because we're doing a lot of work, And so some of it was just pre-planning. Maybe I needed to send special art supplies ahead of time or modify to what they had in the home. And that was great. Play therapy was a little bit more challenging. I really believe in the power of getting our hands on things. And so there are all these really cool apps and things that we can project and screen share, so that we can be doing like a game or even a virtual sand tray. And those are really, really cool. And so, but I kind of made a decision that I would rather send my clients a sand tray and we would have them actually do that. And so that's stuff that I've done. Cool. Or I might have materials on my end and they've got to use really crystal clear communication to tell me what's going where and, how to put things down. You really don't realize how vague people can be until you have to get someone to ask you specifically for something. And that was great because it really translated to all of the rest of their treatment goals as well. And other times it can be very challenging. And so also the work that I did was really building in the adults more and sometimes being that little bird on their shoulder of try this. How about I say it this way? Try that. And all of a sudden I was able to see in vivo in that moment in their home, a kid go from a tantrum to, oh, that's what you want me to do? Well, big deal. Okay, great. And with the horses, it was kind of interesting. Sometimes we would do, an equine session where the person is at the home and the horse is there. And we're just kind of talking about what's happening, with the horse right now. Or do you need me to do something with the horse? And they would, again, have to use really good communication skills to be able to get that, done. Other times we might use a video of a horse and just talk about what is it that we see and notice, and how can we use that projective quality of a video of horses.
How cool. What have you gained as a clinician, and what do you think your clients have gained from shifting and pivoting during COVID?
Oh my goodness. First is just don't tell yourself you're never going to do something, because I think that was really huge. I think just being able to say, no, I can do it anyways. And so that kind of intention really helped me with my clients as well, because if I believe that it can happen, it's going to happen. But also with the clients, they're like, this is going to suck. And it's like, you know what, you're right. You're on screens all day. I get you. How are we going to make this different? And, usually the minute that I explain what we're going to do, they're like, oh, well, that's not so bad. Yeah. Like, just trust me for half a second, and the other thing is that my practice has grown because of telehealth, because now I'm supervising registered interns across the state, which
exciting.
I would never have done. So it's a nice income stream, but I don't charge that much. So the real goal is I'm really helping, people who would have had zero to no access to someone with my specialty, which is really, that's just been awesome. So, and some clients I've never met in real life, and so here there's this piece of how do you build a relationship across the screen? And I didn't realize, but you really can. You can really feel connected to somebody, even though you might see them only, through the screen. And so I think that for me, it's been very enlightening. And I think that my clients have also been able to experience a little bit of lessening of anxiety, because a lot of my clients do come to me for anxiety. And so they've been able to kind of be in their place of comfort, which is their home, and yet still work on a lot of big things. So
I love hearing the different examples of the modalities and how you were able to create these even more creative solutions, because you're already creative and innovative and you think outside of the box. This is just part of who you are and what you do every day. But then the pandemic challenged that on a whole new level, and you just dug so deep into your resources and your own natural strengths and talents and took your creativity and out of the box thinking to a whole new level. It's really cool to hear those different modalities and examples of how you used it, how you used your creativity to be able to continue to help people and serve people in the way that you do.
So Marla, two questions as we begin to wrap up. And one of the questions is we heard you saying that you have some interns and stuff like that. So what's next for Berger Counseling? And then, as our audience has been listening to your journey today, what is it that you want to impart on them in regards to really building their dream practice?
Okay, so what's next is building a bit more passive income. I love doing trainings and actually imparting a lot of this information about how to incorporate art, play, and even horses into modalities. So I'm doing a lot of live trainings coming up, but I'm also then taping them so that they can be on demand for people. And that passive income is my future. Of course, I love, training new clinicians. So I do have student interns from a couple of different local schools coming in over the next few months. So that's a great way also that I'm getting passive income, because I do bill for their sessions at a much reduced rate though. And so people are getting high quality services, but at a reduced rate, because if they can't work with me, they're going to work with someone trained by me. For the future and for other people, I think that really understanding the nuts and bolts of building a private practice and having someone to help hold you accountable is really key. And so I always, support, doing the e-course, doing coaching, Sometimes people can't do both. Of course, I say both is the best, but picking one and really understanding that this is something that you're going to dedicate yourself to, and that you're going to go back and review those notes over and over again, because each time you're going to get something better out of it and something more. And so that's really going to help, in my opinion, grow your practice, because you're going to have all of the research done. I don't want to do the research. So I don't have time to do the research. I just want to know what's best practice for building a practice. And from there, being able to jump off into being successful at it. And so the more time that people can spend on using their creativity to write their content on their website, to put out blogs, go do that. But oftentimes we don't quite know how that's going to work. And so using the e-courses or using coaching is just the best way to kind of hone that message. And then you can take it from there.
Nice. Awesome. Well, as you guys have been listening to Marla's story and her journey, and, I love that she knew her niche even early on, which most of us struggle to find that. But I really like a lot of the stuff that you shared in regards to your journey, and also to inspiring people how in the midst of a crazy pandemic, you had to build a full-time practice immediately, and you were able to do that. And some of the things that you talked about for you is the coaching and having someone ask you those questions and challenge you, right? Is that really what you want? You're like, no, I lied to myself. So no, this is really what I want. And getting those written down, the accountability factor, and review. And, Kate and I are just extremely passionate about serving therapists in this form and fashion, and giving you guys a step-by-step process on how to help you. So if this is you and you're listening to this story and you just want to really get some support and help, definitely check out our marketing e-course. We'll definitely put that in the show notes. And as Marla's training and things like that, Marla, how can people reach out to you? And if they're interested in some of your trainings, where should they go? BergerCounselingServices.com. So that's BERGER, counseling services with an S at the end.com. Awesome.
And you'll find all of the information there under professional services. And you'll also see my story under About Me. So
very cool. I wonder where you learned that from.
Shocker.
It's funny. And I'll just say this. I'm actually in the process of looking for a new primary care physician. And literally I came across this doctor's page that actually shared about who she was and her story. And I'm like, I felt so connected. I'm like, this is why we create About Me pages like this. Think about doctors who usually have their board certification and and I'm like, I don't care about any of that, and it was just really interesting. So of course I'm always looking at things from a marketer perspective, but anyway, it worked. It touched me. So we hope that you guys join us next time as we talk with Aileen on taking a leap of faith and how to build a private practice of your dreams. This was a really cool story. She had just emailed us one day saying, I owe a lot of what I've created to you guys utilizing your A to Z cheat sheet. So we're excited to have her on the podcast and sharing her sources of inspiration. Kate?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here, Marla. It's nice to have you back again as a guest, and we appreciate all that you do and are just so proud of you and inspired to see you continue to grow and evolve. It's awesome. And expand too with your group practice and serving even more and more people. It's awesome. Let's take a moment for our Startup Nation Superheroes shout out for today's episode. This comes from Kristen Papa. Kristen says, the Private Practice Startup Podcast has provided so much information to create a solid foundation for my practice. Kate and Katie have given me many things to consider in regard to starting a business that I have never considered before. I am looking forward for this new chapter in my career, and the podcast has made me even more excited as I consider all of the opportunities private practice will afford me. I highly recommend the Private Practice Startup as a great resource for anyone who wants to grow their own private practice. Kristen, thank you so much for the feedback. We love getting these messages from Startup Nation and hearing how the Private Practice Startup Podcast is inspiring you along your journey from startup to mastery. If there's a topic that we haven't covered yet that you would love to hear, let us know that. And if you're enjoying the show and this is providing value for you along your journey, definitely subscribe, rate, and review. We always appreciate hearing the love from Startup Nation. So we will look forward to seeing you on the next episode. In the meantime, stay inspired, everybody. Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.